Part 81. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 802. In Lothair's palace, the king stood by the window of his bedroom, not feeling sleepy at all. He was going to go to war tomorrow, and he didn't even summon a maid to sleep with him tonight. As a level 8 knight, he had a strong physique, and he needed at least 10 maids to satisfy him in one night, and they had to be apostle maids of a certain level, otherwise they would not be able to withstand his conquest. With strong strength, strong physique, energy, and desire far beyond ordinary people, Lothair XI would not be affected by 3 days of sleepless nights. Tomorrow he will lead the royal knights to the front line and join the Midnight Knights of the Meguen Empire at the front line. For some reason, he felt a little uneasy in his heart. It seemed that something went wrong, but the royal astrologer could not give him an answer. He looked at the wizard tower in the southeast corner of the palace. There was an observatory on the wizard tower, where the level 8 wizards of the Pillar of Creation lived. Emperor Meguen refused to allow the wizards of the Pillar of Creation to enter. He only believed in himself, and the knight's sword in his hand was the guarantee of victory in the war. Lothair XI did not have such strength, so he had to rely on the power of the Pillar of Creation. The wizards of the Pillar of Creation could predict the trend of the war, the time and place of the decisive battle, and could also use special means to boost morale. If one of the two warring parties did not have a wizard of the Pillar of Creation, they would find that the soldiers on the other side were like taking stimulants. The wizards of the Pillar of Creation were observers of the war. They did not participate deeply in the war, but they would give valuable advice at the key points of the war. This was very important. The huge knights ate and ate horses and consumed a lot of money and food. If they could win quickly, it would be very beneficial to the kingdom of Lothair. The kingdom could also pay a high price to ask them to take action. Those fire-related forbidden techniques strengthened by the power of war were extremely powerful. Unable to sleep, Lothair XI walked to the side wall of the bedroom, on which a map was hung. Just standing in front of the front line map, he saw the map suddenly illuminated by blue light. Blue light. Pure blue forbidden fire. The highest level of flame. Lothair XI turned his head and saw the wizard tower engulfed by forbidden fire. Someone ignored the kingdom's alchemical shielding array and appeared directly in the palace, and attacked the royal advisor, the 8th level archwizard who arched the Pillar of Creation. A beam of torches on the palace wall suddenly burst into flames, and the Tianlong wizard who was killed by a sneak attack was resurrected from the flames. A voice came from the sky. What a trouble, another wizard with the southern phoenix and arched Tianlong. Do I hate him so much? The blood-red seraph angel was suspended in the air, with 6 wings spread out, emitting an ominous light. Furnace. Scorpio wizard furnace. The furnace actually appeared in the kingdom of Lothair and killed the first life of the Tianlong wizard. No matter how strong the Tianlong wizard is, he is only a level 8 archwizard. He can't be the opponent of the level 9 Scorpio wizard. But the Tianlong wizard did not escape. He did not rely on the Tianlong wizard's starlight flash to escape to other places, but rushed to the seraph angel in the air. The red eyes of the Tianlong wizard proved that he had lost his mind. As the furnace that mastered the forbidden spell Bone Erosion Revenge, all his enemies would not escape, because they would be blinded by hatred and only think about revenge on the furnace, and there would be no option of escape in their minds. Lothair XI in the bedroom discovered this. The ability of the furnace was too special. Once it went against him, there was no chance to escape. The Tianlong wizard rushed forward, and the ending was inevitable. He was cut in half by the blood-red sword of the seraph angel. The white starlight collapsed, and the Tianlong wizard lost his second life. The seraph angel didn't even need to move. The Tianlong wizard couldn't wait to revive and rushed to the seraph angel. Lothair XI walked towards his armor, and his armor flew out automatically. All the accessories of these armors were wizard weapons, and they all used wind phase wizard language. When he jumped out of the window with his full body armor, his royal guards were also ready. There were always 1,000 knights in the palace, and they were his loyal royal knights. The palace had 3 walls and 3 gates. The 3 gates opened at the same time, and the sound of the royal knights' horses' hooves rang out in the silent palace. During the charge, Lothair XI's strength also broke through level 8 and reached level 9. He felt that he was not without the power to fight in front of the Scorpio wizard furnace. However, a sky arrow wrapped in blue forbidden fire shot straight at Lothair XI. The sky arrow nailed in front of Lothair XI, and the sky arrow as thick as a person blocked his way. Lothair XI understood the meaning of this arrow, which was a warning for him not to interfere. While he was hesitating, the dragon wizard's 6th life was also lost. The dragon wizard weakened at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the white dragon turned translucent. Above the seraph angel, Rudolph waved his hand and made Vanya appear. Vanya was enough to deal with the weak dragon wizard. He looked up at the sky. The latitude here was very high, and he felt the movement of the starlight. In the direction of the archpole, the pillar of creation came. A female wizard in tight palace clothes appeared from the starlight. Level 9 Ares wizard Melis. Rudolph did not test it at the first time, but smiled at Melis. "You didn't disappoint me. You are worthy of being a wizard of the pillar of creation. Your skin is well maintained. If an old man came, it would be too boring." The arrogant attitude of the furnace made Melis frown deeply. The seraph raised the blood-red sword, and Melis raised the staff. This is a confrontation between level 9 wizards, a confrontation between forbidden spells, and a confrontation between the uniqueness of wizards and their uniqueness. Absolute Zero. Bone-eroding revenge. Rudolph raised his eyebrows slightly. The forbidden spell of Ares wizard Melis actually used heat in reverse to create a heat black hole, which made the enemy fall into absolute zero. This is also an absolute ability, just like Rudolph's absolute hit and absolute concealment, very domineering. The seraph flipped its color, instantly changing from red to white, like a 100-meter high ice sculpture. At the same time, Melis's eyes suddenly turned red, and she was on the verge of losing control. Rudolph raised the corners of his mouth slightly, which was the only action he could do with frost all over his body. At this moment, Ivan, holding the star condensation dragon scale, suddenly walked out of the starlight. Not only can Rudolph appear next to the star condensation dragon scale in an instant, but the person holding Rudolph's star condensation dragon scale can also appear next to Rudolph in an instant. A huge grey wolf head appeared above the head of the seraph angel. Rudolph protected Ivan for a long time. Now Ivan has mastered the level 9 uniqueness and can help Rudolph in the frontal battle. Lothair XI on the ground slowly took off his helmet. This is not a battle he can participate in. Only Emperor Meguen is qualified to participate in the battle of 3 level 9 apostles. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 803. The Blazing Vengeance Angel and the Ancient Beast's Soul, Rudolph and Ivan are a very special pair. Their level 9 uniqueness, both have the ability of amplification and chaos. The Bone Erosion Vengeance can stimulate its own potential with hatred, and the Ancient Beast's Soul can release the beast to increase combat power. When the two amplification type uniquenesses are superimposed, Rudolph's arm moved, and Absolute Zero could not fight against the two level 9 amplification type uniquenesses. It is easier for Rudolph to control his own hatred, but it is a little more troublesome to control the beast. If Ivan is not around to help him, the beast will make him lose control of his consciousness. The Bone Erosion Vengeance and the Ancient Beast's Soul are also the unique abilities of chaos. The Bone Erosion Vengeance can make the opponent blinded by hatred, and the Ancient Beast's Soul can arouse the opponent's beast, both of which will cause the enemy to lose reason. Ares wizard Melis opened her mouth, panting, her eyes were dull, and scenes of memories emerged in her heart. She has grown up along the way and become the only Ares wizard in the world. She has paid a lot and endured a lot. The hatred in her heart is being released. The wizards of the Pillar of Creation all awakened on the battlefield. She was originally a military doctor in a certain war. After the troops were destroyed, she crawled out of the ruins and met her teacher. The teacher stood among the corpses and smiled at her, as if he was a savior. Originally, she was very grateful to her teacher, but later she came into contact with the truth. The war was started by her teacher. Just like the war in the northern continent this time, the Pillar of Creation deliberately spread the news of the power of destruction through extremely secret channels, making Hermes mistakenly believe that he had divined it himself. In the war in which Melis awakened, her fellow countrymen, her friends, and her patients all died on the battlefield. Melis, who knew the truth, silently accumulated strength, concealed his thoughts, and prepared for revenge. The master and apprentice eventually went to a life and death struggle. Melis killed her teacher and also got the status of consultant of the then Kantar United States. Even after decades, Melis's hatred is still clear. She hates her teacher and the way the Pillar of Creation looks for wizard apprentices, which has confused her identity. Not only is hatred playing tricks, but at the same time, the animality in her heart is being released, and this most primitive animality makes her feel hot all over. Eating and reproduction are the most basic animal desires of humans and beasts. The instinct of eating drives her to go further, to live, and to achieve immortality. The instinct of reproduction reminds her of the days when she was violated by her teacher. After being humiliated for a long time, she actually felt a little pleasure. That pleasure made her even more humiliated. She and her teacher stayed in the wizard tower in Cantal for more than 10 years. The teacher even took the initiative to use Ares witchcraft to maintain her skin, just because he liked smooth skin all over his body. The way she was naked and her skin was maintained by the teacher was like a precious porcelain being maintained. Melis's eyes were red, and a gurgling sound came out of her throat that shouldn't have appeared. Violent snowflakes appeared around her, and these snowflakes rushed towards the furnace and Corvinus like a storm. However, blinded by hatred and bestiality, she couldn't even tell that Ivan was just a substitute, and Rudolph didn't care about being killed. Melis didn't even notice the resurrection of the furnace. Rudolph walked out of the torch on the city wall and looked at the crazy Melis in the sky. The crazy Melis still attacked the original position of Rudolph and Ivan with a fierce storm. There was a storm whirlwind with a cold white light in the sky, and the diameter of the storm was almost the same as the inner city surrounded by the third wall of the palace. Melis only knew how to vent, and didn't even notice that the seraph angel arrived behind her. In this sudden battle, losing reason is so terrible and dangerous, which means completely losing the judgment of the battle. The seraph angel swung the sword back, calmly accumulated power, and the big sword crossed the sky, leaving a red light, and then chopped Melis's waist fiercely. Bang! The blood-red sword broke. Rudolph raised his eyebrows. The power of war, he finally saw the power of war. A phantom of a kite shield suddenly appeared on Melis' body. The kite shield is the embodiment of the power of war in the legend. In the Megwen Empire, there has been a record of the terrible war that took place more than 2,000 years ago. With the support of the entire northern continent, the northern continent, which had been oppressed by the evil god cult for thousands of years, united behind Emperor Alec the Great. The final decisive battle took place on the Aquitaine Plain where the city of Lager is located. Emperor Alec the Great fought against the 10 evil gods. The knights formed a legion, and other apostles also formed a legion. One by one, the legions were destroyed, and the evil gods fell one by one in the sky. That was the final battle that determined the fate of the northern continent, a crossroads of survival or death. 3 evil gods died at the hands of Emperor Alec the Great, and the cardinal priests were all killed by Emperor Alec the Great, who was close to the strength of a level 10 apostle. However, Ptolemy was the ultimate winner. Ptolemy, the royal advisor of the Megwen Empire, successfully obtained the authority of war on a battlefield full of corpses. On the corpses covering the ground, the embodiment of the authority of war emerged, which was a kite shield with a 12-pointed star painted on it. Possessing the authority of war means that you will never lose in a head-on battle. Just as Rudolph and Ivan attacked Melis with hatred and bestiality, when they entered level 9 or above, the battle became more treacherous, and the attacks of both sides were no longer witchcraft and swords, but uniqueness and authority. When some of the authority of war appeared beside Melis, Rudolph knew that he would not defeat Melis. He didn't expect to kill the Ares wizard of the Pillar of Creation here. Vanya had killed the 8th level Sky Dragon wizard and returned to Rudolph. The Sky Dragon wizard was eroded by Rudolph's bone-eating hatred and didn't even know how to escape. Vanya got the Sky Dragon wizard's relic, a level 8 dragon scale. Under the protection of some war authority, Melis finally regained her sanity. She found that she had just vented to the void for a long time, but her enemies, the Furnace and Corvinus, were standing on the city wall and looking at her leisurely. Furnace. Corvinus. In the face of this gnashing greeting, Rudolph was not in a hurry, but took out a Cardinal Priest relic and threw it to Melis in the air. Melis took the level 8 relic and didn't know why. Respected Ares wizard, you guarded the Arctic glaciers, which caused me to fail to accommodate the characteristics of the Arched Dragon constellation at the level 8 wizard stage. This is my lifelong regret. In order to make up for this regret, I had to use the relics of the Dragon Wizard to make a magic weapon. To complete the Arched Dragon constellation secret formula, you need the relics of the priests. This relic is my deposit. I hope you can train new Arched Dragon Wizards as soon as possible, and I will come to pick up the goods when the time comes. Melis looked at the relic in disbelief. She was sure that this was a level 8 relic, there was no problem, and there was no trick. But how dare the Furnace do this? Humiliation, this is naked humiliation. Just as Melis was about to raise her hand to attack, she saw that the Furnace and Corvinus had disappeared in the starlight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 804. Above Lothair's palace, there was an absolute silence. All the maids of the kingdom huddled in the corner, not daring to speak. All the guards returned to the classroom, not daring to provoke. The king's princes and princesses were covered by their mothers' mouths, not daring to make a sound. There were no blood-red seraphs, no ancient beast souls, no manic ice storms, and no war kite shields in the starry sky. Only Melis was left floating in the void, looking at the south. The Furnace and Corvinus had already made magic tools with the relics of the Tianlong wizard, and appeared in Elba. Melis could get there quickly, but it would be useless for her to go there. There was a furnace with a huge arsenal of alchemical nuclear bombs, which would be more difficult. Her face was full of resentment. The Pillar of Creation has always been the shadow of all apostles. When have you ever seen the Pillar of Creation being humiliated? There are several level 8 wizards in the Pillar of Creation, and these wizards are all made of level 8 relics from the northern continent. Even an 8th level apostle is a resource in front of the Pillar of Creation. Even the powerful Meguen Empire has an equal cooperative relationship with the Pillar of Creation, and the two sides have never torn their faces. At the beginning, Emperor Alec knew that he was used by Ptolemy, but he did not become an enemy of Ptolemy in the end. In the history of the Pillar of Creation, only Mercury more than 200 years ago used the relics of the arching dragon wizard to make a magic weapon. Now there is another Scorpio wizard, who is as rampant as Mercury. At that time, Mercury obtained part of the omniscience, and Ptolemy, the lord of Mars, descended from the war. In the end, it took more than 10 years of survival time to catch the cunning Mercury. Although Ptolemy is immortal, his survival time also needs to be exchanged for war. More than 10 years of time is used to hunt down an enemy. This is the first time that this has happened after Ptolemy became immortal. The furnace must have omniscience. If the pillar of creation goes to war with the furnace, once this behavior begins, the furnace will immediately know through omniscience and immediately formulate an evasion plan. He knows all the means by which Mercury avoids Ptolemy, and he will even become more cunning. This is another difficult Mercury. Melis had to accept this reality. Her fight with the furnace ended in her own defeat. Until now, her chest was heaving. Being wrapped up in hatred and bestiality reminded her of many unbearable memories, which made her angry. Because she lost her mind, she didn't have time to rescue the Tianlong wizard sent to the kingdom of Lothair. If this news spreads, it will definitely make all countries re-examine their war advisors. For example, now, after the furnace disappeared, Lothair XI waited for the sky arrow to dissipate, and he rushed outside the city wall with the royal knights. With a high momentum, Lothair XI seemed to have the strength to fight in front of the ninth-level apostles. He shouted loudly into the air, "Respected Ares wizard, where is the murderer furnace?" Melis looked down at Lothair XI, said nothing, and turned into starlight and dissipated. Lothair XI was bored. He wanted to show his anger at the furnace in front of the pillar of creation. The furnace had damaged a corner of his palace. Seeing the Ares wizard leave, Lothair XI walked around the city wall for a few times, inspected the city wall destroyed by the furnace, and the mage tower turned to ashes, and dispersed the royal knights. Standing around the ruins, Lothair XI suddenly felt that his proud 8th-level knight strength was not enough to deal with the next terrible war. The furnace and Corvinus joined forces, with terrible strength, and could suppress the Ares wizard with uniqueness. This was too horrifying. The Ares wizard, who had the right to use some war authority and was the spokesperson of the Lord of Mars on Earth, was actually suppressed by the furnace. It seems that he must submit to Emperor Meguen more humbly. Only Emperor Meguen can lead the knights to move forward. At this moment, he understood why all the apostles were willing to submit to Emperor Alec more than 2,000 years ago. Under the deadly threat, the emperor is their only hope. After standing for a long time, Lothair XI said to the attendant, "Make arrangements to take care of Earl Jennifer on the battlefield. Let a disciple of the royal astrologer follow Earl Jennifer and predict danger for Earl Jennifer. Don't let Earl Jennifer die in battle." "Yes, Your Majesty." The strength shown by Furnus and Corvinus forced Lothair XI to do so. I don't know how much affection Furnus still has for Earl Jennifer. It's always good to keep a backup. In case I see Furnus again in the future, I can also secretly show his care for Furnus women. When he quells the alchemist rebellion and unifies the country, his country is Furnus's motherland, and there is a possibility of peace between the two sides. Rudolf returned to Elba and appeared under the iron wall of Trapped. After taking a quick look at the defenses under the iron wall of Trapped, Rudolf and Yvonne immediately headed to the Luberon region. When Yvonne came, she took the star-condensed dragon scale from the Luberon region, which was a bit risky. After inspecting the nuclear bomb arsenal, Rudolf breathed a sigh of relief. During this period of time, no one attacked the arsenal. Mass-produced bullets have little deterrence for high-level apostles, and mass-produced alchemical nuclear bombs make those enemies daunted. There are already hundreds of alchemical nuclear bombs in this arsenal. The Luberon region has rich uranium mines, and the alchemist's nuclear bomb factory is running at full capacity, constantly producing alchemical nuclear bombs. The last step is to inject the power of level 9 alchemy to constrain the production capacity. If the alchemist is given another level 9 alchemist magic weapon, they can produce alchemical nuclear bombs faster. The omniscient scroll said that these alchemical nuclear bombs contain the power of destruction, which Rudolf prepared for Yvonne. Rudolf also went to see Joel's level 9 alchemical experiment. Joel's remote alchemical guidance experiment is related to Rudolf's most important plan. Whether Yvonne can master the power of destruction depends on Joel's experiment. Taking out the omniscient scroll, Rudolf and Joel discussed for a few days and helped Joel advance the progress of the experiment. After doing all this, Rudolf set about making new star-condensed dragon scales. If this relic is made into a magic weapon, then I will have 4 star-condensed dragon scales. Ivan, put one on the werewolf ancestral mountain, so that you can shuttle between the werewolf ancestral mountain and me at any time. Okay. Ivan was very happy. The werewolf ancestral mountain was far less comfortable than living next to Rudolf. After drawing the astrological triangle, Rudolf quickly finished making the magic weapon. The dragon scale split into 2 halves, becoming Rudolf's basis for flashing and shuttling. He has 4 pieces of star-condensed dragon scales, and now he is more flexible. One piece is placed on the werewolf ancestor mountain, which is Ivan's exclusive action magic weapon. One piece is placed in the alchemical nuclear bomb arsenal to prevent the theft of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. One piece is placed in Lajur City, so that Rudolf can influence the attitudes of several alchemist countries at any time. Of course, it also allows Rudolf to return to Lajur City at any time and see Yanilla at any time. One piece is placed under the Kundan iron wall, and Cooper is guarding there to prevent the evil god cult from attacking. Rudolf said that he would find the arched dragon wizard to pick up the goods in the future. This is not a joke. He really needs the dragon wizard's relics. If he has a few more pieces of star-condensed dragon scales, his mobility will be further enhanced. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 805. On the vast plain, several knight groups are advancing. The flags of various noble families are linked together. The Royal Midnight Knights of the Megwen Empire, black helmets, black armor, black cloaks, and even the armor of the war horses are black. 60,000 Royal Midnight Knights constitute the main force of the Megwen Empire Expeditionary Corps. This place is too far from the Megwen Empire, and Emperor Megwen did not bring all the knights. The Royal Giant Corps, 100-meter-high giant guards on both sides of the Royal Midnight Knights. A total of 4,000 giants, 2,000 on each side. Only the Megwen Empire has a settlement of giants. These giants are loyal to Emperor Megwen and are the most loyal corps of Emperor Megwen. Whether Emperor Megwen obtains the power of immortality or Goliath, the king of giants, obtains the power of immortality, it will improve the living conditions of giants. If Emperor Megwen is willing to delegate the power of authority to ordinary giants, the apostle power of giants will evolve again. Hermes sat in a carriage and walked in the Royal Midnight Knights. After several days of divination, he got a result: as long as the Carolingian United States, especially the capital of the Carolingian United States, the power of destruction will appear on the ruins of Carolingian. Emperor Megwen knew that Goliath, the king of giants, knew that if the beautiful city of Evelyn, the capital of Carolingian, became a dead place, the power of destruction would definitely appear. On the side of the 2 corps, there were 3 knights of the kingdom of Lothair, one of which was the Royal Flame Knights and 2 were the Duke Knights. The flags and armor of the Royal Flame Knights were red, making this knight group like a dancing flame. The huge knight alliance quickly moved south and approached the defense line of the Carolingian Constitution Army. As the Earl of the Lothair royal family, Jennifer had a 1,000-man Royal Knight team. Behind her, the one closest to her was a female word spirit, a disciple of the royal astrologer. Following the knights on the march always makes people feel excited. Astrologer Kiwei, do you think we can win this war? Count Jennifer, with the support of His Majesty the King, Emperor Megwen, and the Pillar of Creation, we can certainly win. His Majesty the King and Emperor Megwen will not sit idly by and watch the alchemists continue to grow stronger, otherwise the social order of the Night Kingdom will collapse because of the invasion of the alchemists. The word spirit named Kiwei comforted her, her eyes flickered, staring at Jennifer's back with expectation. This is one of the backup plans of the Goddess of Wisdom. In order to deal with the furnace, the Goddess of Wisdom has made sufficient preparations. If necessary, this woman can be used to force the furnace to take action. According to the judgment of the Goddess of Wisdom, the furnace is a nostalgic person, and the furnace will not sit idly by and watch his lover being killed. In the chaotic battlefield, as long as the furnace appears beside Jennifer, the goddess of wisdom will get what he wants. On the Carolingian side, Cantal's Constitutional Army and Elba Constitutional Army have been assembled. This is a battle that determines the trend of the northern continent, a battle that determines the ruling power of the northern continent, and a battle that determines the ownership of the northern continent. The alchemists do not want to fight such a big battle with the knights for no reason. Time is on the side of the alchemists. As long as they are given another 50 years, no, even 30 years, the alchemists' technology will make them powerful and irresistible. But the knights are unwilling to sit back and watch the alchemists become more and more powerful, so the alchemists have to fight. The commander-in-chief of the alchemist coalition is Franz, the commander-in-chief of the Carolingian Constitutional Army. Norberto just came from Elba and came to the front line with the Elba Constitutional Army. Commander-in-Chief Franz, Elba has sent 2/3 of their ground forces to us by train. They have done their best. There was no one else here, so Franz asked directly, where are Elba's airship troops? Their airship troops need to guard the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. In the past, the Meguen Empire stood aside and watched, but now it has become the evil god cult that stands aside and watches. Elba has the pressure to defend against the evil god cult, so they have to deploy the airship troops in the direction of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. Mr. Furness judged that when the Knight Alliance and the Alchemist Alliance have a decisive battle, it is the time for the evil god cult to rush out of the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The evil god cult will not miss this precious opportunity. They have suffered several blows from Elba, and the civil war in the northern continent is the best time for the evil god cult to counterattack. Franz nodded, and he also felt that it should be so. The evil god cult is eyeing the northern continent and will not give up the opportunity to return to the northern continent. He asked again. What about the alchemical nuclear bomb? How many alchemical nuclear bombs is Elba willing to support us with? Norberto opened the briefcase in front of the commander-in-chief, and there was half a dragon scale in the briefcase. Commander-in-chief, this is the 8th level magic weapon originally deployed in Lajer City, the star-condensed dragon scale. This magic weapon has only one function, that is, to summon Mr. Furness at any time. Seeing the shining white starlight on the dragon scale, Commander-in-Chief Franz's hanging heart was half relieved. This is Elba's greatest support attitude. As long as there is the magic weapon star-condensed dragon scale, there is a furnace, and as long as there is a furnace, there is a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb. Many of the furnace's abilities are like they are specially prepared for bombing. The combination of a level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb and a furnace will scare all enemies. Okay. Let us say goodbye to the arrogant nobles completely and sweep them into the garbage dump of history. Carolingian is also developing a level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb. A level 9 alchemist was born in their history. The relics of that alchemist were also made into witchcraft, and he continued to contribute to the Alchemy Council after his death. Elba did not disclose the method of making alchemical nuclear bombs, and Carolingian would not have disclosed this. The level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb is the guarantee of Elba's national security and cannot be given to others. As long as they break through the development method, they can also use level 9 alchemist wizard tools to make alchemical nuclear bombs. Trapped under the iron wall, Rudolph walked out of the star-condensed dragon scale and looked at the black line in the distance. That black line is the dividing line that separates the Eagle's Beak Peninsula and Elba. The south side of the trapped iron wall belongs to the evil god cult. Child of destiny, have you felt the call of destiny? Is there any chance of promotion? Cooper covered his body with a cloak, but his black skull was exposed. He didn't need to open or close his gums to speak, but to make him appear normal, he learned to lip sync. It can't be that easy. I even went to provoke me under the iron wall of trouble, but no level 9 pope or evil god bothered me. They didn't even want to give me a promotion. They were so stingy. Rudolph, why don't you rush to the battlefield between the knight and the alchemist immediately? Rudolph replied. I hope the alchemist wins, but to be honest, even if the knight wins, as long as they don't get the power of destruction, I won't be able to accept it. I'm more worried about the cult of evil than the knights. It would only be a headache if the cult of evil took advantage of the void Elba was guarding to launch an attack, and if the peace Elba finally achieved was evaporated. The evil god sect is so pitiful. I wonder if they have reflected on why they offended you. How can they reflect? God does not reflect. God is always right, Rudolph said. Cooper, let's do some reconnaissance to see how many priests and believers there are on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. Do you want to determine the scale of the evil cult sneak attack? Rudolph's eyes flashed. Not entirely, I may have to make a decision that goes against my ancestors. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 806. The Carolingian Constitutional Army and the Lothair Royal Army had been in balance before, and the two sides were anxious on the border. Now the situation has changed. On the side of the Carolingian states, they joined the constituent army of Elba and Cantal. The kingdom of Lothair joined the army of the Mogwen Empire. The front lines were lined with trenches. Against knights, trenches are better than bunkers. Trenches can not only block the knight's progress, but also hide themselves, while the bunker will only become a living target for the knight's charge. The constitutional army soldiers hid in the trenches and looked uneasily at the knight coalition in front. Thousands of giants, the dark knights of the Polar Knight, and the magma-like Royal Flame Knights put tremendous pressure on the constitutional army. Especially at the front of the Knights of the Polar Knight, Emperor Mogwen, who is known as the strongest man in the northern continent, is a level 9 knight and the most powerful person in immortality. Just standing there is a great intimidation. Force. Not only were ordinary soldiers frightened, but so were the top brass of the constitutional army. Among the Alchemy Alliance, only Nicholas of Cantal is a level 9 alchemist. Nicholas is not an alchemist specializing in weapons. He is a level 9 alchemist who was promoted through internal combustion engine experiments. He is not good at fighting. He is here as a consultant to maintain the level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb. At the same time, we are also trying to find ways to contact the Elba people and gain more support from Elba. If the Carolingian Alchemy Council fails, the next one targeted by the Knights will be the Cantal Alchemy Council. The biggest reliance of the Alchemy Alliance is the level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb and the furnace. Only level 9 alchemical nuclear bombs and furnaces can fight against the Knight Alliance. Nicholas was not wearing a military uniform. He was wearing a suit and sitting on the side of the headquarters. His eyes looked at Dwayne, the head of the Elba Trial Department, from time to time. Dwayne holds the star condensed dragon scale in his hand, and is responsible for summoning the furnace at critical moments and making the furnace appear on the battlefield. Now the command is engaged in a fierce quarrel. According to reliable information, the Mogwen Empire actually obtained 2 level 9 alchemy nuclear bombs. According to the news from Black Gold, 2 of the 10 alchemical nuclear bombs lost by Elba flowed into the hands of the Mogwen Empire. This greatly disrupted the plans of the Alchemy Alliance. There are no moral constraints on weapons of mass destruction in this world. Whatever alchemists develop is thrown at the enemy's head. If the Mogwen Empire also has alchemy nuclear bombs, then the strategy of the war will change greatly. The headquarters was as noisy as the fish market in the morning. Emperor Mogwen is a knight who can kill gods. Is the alchemy nuclear bomb useful to him? Should we strike first and throw an alchemical nuclear bomb directly at the Knight Alliance? Is there still any point in trench warfare? What is the true purpose of the Knight? Was it intentional for the Knights to release such news from the Black Gold Institute? Dwayne, holding the star condensed dragon scale, did not participate in these debates. War decisions are so terrible that any wrong decision can lead to the death of tens of thousands of soldiers. Nicholas was not interested in these arguments either. He came to Duan's side and whispered, "Dear Minister Duan, I have mastered the maintenance rules of the alchemy nuclear bomb. There are several key points. I only know how to do it, but not why." Nicholas said several words. Duan shook his head in embarrassment, and he said, "Mr. Nicholas, the Level 9 alchemy nuclear bomb was jointly developed by Prime Minister House and Commander-in-Chief Stein. I really don't know about the issue you mentioned. If you have the chance, you can go to Legara and discuss it with Prime Minister House. I think Prime Minister House must be asking for it. I want to go to Nicholas' side. But you have also seen that even alchemists like me who are not good at fighting have to come to the front line. If we lose this battle, alchemists will have no future." He looked at the star condensing dragon scale, and then asked, "Isn't Mr. Furnace here yet?" After Elba supported this place, the internal defense was empty. Mr. Consultant is arranging defense against the evil cult, and the consultant is inseparable there. Sir, all the evil gods from the evil god cult have descended on the Eagle Beak Peninsula, and it's not any easier than here. Yes, Elba still has to deal with the evil cult. Nicholas suddenly thought of something and added, "Haha, do you think Caroline is angry now?" The Carolingian Forge became Elba's patron saint, and at this time Elba's defense was considered first. "If I were Speaker of the Carolingian House of Lords, I would give up my position as Speaker to the melting pot, and make the melting pot happy." Duane felt that Mr. Nicholas was really not suitable for the battlefield. He should study advanced machinery such as internal combustion engines instead of wasting time on the battlefield. Just when the officers were noisy, a sharp alarm bell suddenly sounded outside. As the most reckless knights among the apostles, unlike the alchemist who thought so much, they launched an attack without any nonsense. The commander-in-chief quickly issued an order, "Mr. Nicholas is ready to activate the alchemical nuclear bomb at any time. Minister Duan is ready to summon Mr. Furnace at any time." Nicholas glanced at Duane, his eyes seeming to say, "You see, in the end we will have to torment both of us." Duan didn't think he had time to prepare. He directly input the power of alchemy into the star-condensing dragon scale and notified the furnace consultant. Maybe the crucible advisor is also in the battle, or dealing with something else, and you need to give the crucible advisor some reaction time. In the underground arsenal of Bull City, Rudolph suddenly looked up and looked to the north. His figure disappeared in this huge arsenal, and when he appeared again, he was already on the battlefield between the Knight Alliance and the Alchemy Alliance. The Midnight Knights took the lead and launched an attack. They united closely behind Emperor Meguen, and the Guardian chain was completely connected to Emperor Meguen. At the first moment of the war, Emperor Meguen entered the strongest state. His power exceeded level 9 and was stronger than the evil god. Rudolph didn't know whether the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb could deal with such a knight. The Seraph Angel appeared above the battlefield first. The blood-red Seraph Angel, stimulated by hatred, spewed red steam all over his body and suddenly crashed into Emperor Meguen. As the only one of the amplification type, the Seraph Angel is also stronger than the ordinary level 9 apostle. Emperor Meguen was wearing pure black armor, with a black cloak fluttering behind him, and his body size was just the size of an ordinary person. The warhorse was galloping, and he looked up at the Seraph Angel. No matter how tall the Seraphim was, in his eyes, the Seraphim was just a weak giant with a huge body. Emperor Meguen wielded the Night Sword, and a black sword light appeared in front of him. The sword light was 100 meters long and chopped directly at the Seraphim in the air. The Seraphim's shield blocked the sword light, but the Seraphim was chopped back. Both sides were shocked. Rudolph was shocked by the tyranny of Emperor Meguen. He was much stronger than the ordinary level 9, but he was still knocked away in front of the full-fledged Emperor Meguen. Emperor Meguen was shocked by the strength of the Seraphim. He thought that his sword would kill the furnace and then entangle with the resurrected furnace. Unexpectedly, he couldn't even take away the life of the furnace with one sword. This world has a limit to its power. Both Emperor Megwen and the Seraphim have approached the limit of the world. After a short knock, the Seraphim rushed up again. The blood-red giant sword and the black sword light made everyone excited. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 807. The battle reached its climax when the furnace was casting the forbidden spell with all its strength. The seraph angel spread its 6 wings, and the star power full of hatred quickly swept through the knight's army. Inside the helmets, the knights' eyes turned red. They no longer stared at the enemy opposite, but began to turn their heads left and right to look around themselves. Hatred, the uniqueness of the Scorpio wizard's furnace, will disintegrate the knights from within. At this moment, a white starlight suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Ares wizard Melis stood on the head of Tianlong with a kite shield in his hand. Under the cover of the power of war, the army formation that had just appeared in panic was once again as solid as a rock. The power of war eliminated the influence of the power of hatred on ordinary knights. Rudolph looked at Melis, feeling helpless. Level 10 authority is stronger than level 9 uniqueness. The Seraph Angel made a gesture of retreat. The Constitution Army Command saw the order of the Seraph Angel and quickly ordered the troops to retreat. Melis had no intention of pursuing. She knew that the Crucible still had many trump cards. For example, the werewolf Corvinus did not appear on the battlefield. The army of the Constitutional Army retreated further and further, and the Seraph Angels were the last to disappear in the distance. In the Flame Knights, Jennifer took off her helmet. She was still struggling. What should she do if she met Rudolph? But in such a war, she was a level 6 knight and was not qualified to enter the core war zone. Like Jennifer, Butcher in the Giant Corps was also disappointed. Butcher leaned on his bones and watched Rudolph go away. Unexpectedly, the little patrolman behind Claude back then has now become a wizard who can compete head-on with Emperor Megwen. They became enemies because of their different camps, but they felt that this hostility was inexplicable. Butcher especially wanted to understand why he was against Rudolph here. After thinking again and again, he suddenly realized that this didn't seem to be his war. It was the war of Emperor Megwen, the war of the astrologer Hermes, and the war of the giant king Goliath. What did it have to do with him? He walked to the superior officer, wanting to leave this terrible battlefield in the name of gathering intelligence. As a giant who had been hiding in the southern city of Carolingian, his superiors attached great importance to him. After layers of approval, he was allowed to continue to lurk in the south and gather intelligence. After leaving the camp, Butcher spit at the camp. The authority, he should just hide and be an ordinary person. This is not his war. Unlike Butcher, Jennifer rushed to the outside of the king's tent, waiting for the king's summons, hoping to get more troops, so that she would have more opportunities to be promoted and make greater military achievements. Everyone's personality and needs are so different that everyone has their own destiny. The furnace could not defeat the Royal Midnight Knights, but the sword that the furnace had just casually dealt to the giants almost killed the giant king Goliath. If it weren't for the help of Emperor Megwen, Goliath would have become a relic of the furnace. Lothair XI gathered his knights and told them not to pursue, otherwise it would be bad if they met the furnace who came back to kill them. The Royal Midnight Knights were not afraid of the furnace, but that didn't mean the Royal Flame Knights were not afraid either. Lothair XI was not the opponent of the furnace, and only Emperor Megwen could gain the upper hand in front of the furnace. The first exploratory battle between the Knights Union and the Alchemy Union left many corpses and ended hastily. The Alchemy Union retreated in an orderly manner and retreated to the rear. After the battle was completely over and the Alchemy Union established a new headquarters in the rear, the senior members of the Alchemy Union gathered in the headquarters. Everyone looked at the furnace, but the furnace motioned Nicholas to sit with him at the chairman's table. Rudolf was used to being the host or the middleman. Rudolf was the mediator between East and West Elba, Caroline and Elba, Kontar and Elba. Nicholas was surprised. He was not a combat alchemist. It was somewhat inappropriate for him to sit in front of everyone, with so many admirals sitting below. However, no one else said much about the arrangement of the furnace. After everyone quieted down, Rudolf said, "I have to tell you an unfortunate fact. Judging from the strength shown by Emperor Megwen, I don't think the threat of the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb to him will be as great as you think. If he is in the Royal Midnight Knights, then the level 9 alchemical nuclear bomb cannot threaten his life. At most, it will reduce the number of knights in the Royal Knights. The problem now is that you have to drag it on. When I solve the evil god cult in the Eagle's Beak Peninsula, I will come here to help you with all my strength." Commander-in-Chief Franz asked hurriedly, "The evil god cult, is there any movement over there?" "Yes," Rudolf said. "There is a civil war between the knights and alchemists in the northern continent, and the evil god cult has once again gathered a huge force. The only thing the evil god fears is Emperor Megwen. The 9th level knight has the ability to kill gods. If Emperor Megwen is dragged here, then the evil god's body can safely come to the northern continent. The evil gods have lived for so long in a half-dead state. They are most afraid of death, so they are most eager for the power of eternal life. They will not miss the opportunity of the civil war in the northern continent." After the others left, Rudolf left Nicholas alone. They are all 9th level apostles, and Nicholas's combat power is several orders of magnitude lower than that of the furnace. He doesn't know why the furnace left him alone. "Mr. Nicholas, I like your internal combustion engine car very much. I drive that car every day when I go out and I can't put it down." Nicholas was delighted. It felt good to have his invention recognized by the melting pot. "Thank you for your likes. Mr. Nicholas, I hope you can take charge of something." "What is it?" "My fighting ability is limited and I really can't do more." Rudolf stared at the map. This retreat was only more than 10 kilometers. It was only more than 220 kilometers away from the Carolingian capital of Elynes. If he retreated a few times, he would retreat to the surroundings of Elynes. Rudolf looked at Evelyn City and said, "Mr. Nicholas, I think your diesel locomotive is very useful and may have a fundamental impact on this war. In the coming war, there is no need for you to stay on the front line. As you said, you are not a combat alchemist. I want you to do one thing: place as many diesel locomotives as possible in the city of Evelyn. Not the classic cars that are reserved for rich people now, but transport vehicles or trucks with similar train carriages. I hope that at some point in the future, internal combustion engine trucks will be able to transport as many people as possible out of Elynes in a short period of time." Nicholas was a little confused. He knew what the furnace wanted him to do, but he didn't understand the use of it. "Take as many people as possible out of Evelyn City. Do you think there is a possibility that Evelyn City will also be occupied?" Rudolf nodded. He wanted to say something else, but suddenly his heart moved. The city of Bor, trapped under the iron wall, was calling him. There was a new situation in the evil god cult, and he had to let him deal with it. "Please complete this matter as soon as possible. I have to leave. I have to go to the Eagle Beak Peninsula. I will communicate with you at any time for details." Rudolf took out half a scroll. "I can lend you this thing first. I hope it can help you." Nicholas took the scroll, and the next second, Nicholas's expression changed drastically. "This is..." Nicholas asked in shock, "Are you going to give me such a precious thing?" Rudolf smiled and said, "I know all your past and know that you are a trustworthy person." After saying that, Rudolf's figure shattered into starlight and disappeared. Nicholas quickly went to say hello to the Commander-in-Chief Franz and left the front line. It seems that what the melting pot explained is very, very critical, and the melting pot actually gave away such an important thing. As a level 9 alchemist, the resources Nicholas can mobilize are terrifying. The United States of Cantal and the United Carolingian States had many civilian factories in addition to arsenals. As long as it does not affect the production of the arsenal, he can make all civilian factories in the two United States produce the spare parts he wants. On the way back to Evelyn City, he started drawing drawings. Transporter, with a transporter like a train car, to evacuate more people in a short time. The cabin should be as long as possible, and the internal combustion engine can even be carried behind the cab or placed directly under the cab. Soon, the prototype of the first truck appeared on the drawing board. Unlike steam engines, which have huge combustion boilers, internal combustion engines have much smaller engines, which makes internal combustion trucks more flexible and efficient. After arriving in Evelyn City, Nicholas held a meeting of factory owners. Almost all the factory owners in Carolingian, as well as Cantal's association representatives stationed in Evelyn City, etc., received the request for level 9 alchemists. Internal combustion engine trucks were split into parts and distributed to all factories, requiring them to produce at least 10,000 internal combustion engine transport trucks within a few months. This matter was jointly promoted by the level 9 alchemist Nicholas and the level 9 Scorpio wizard Furnace, so it received a resource second only to the arsenal. When the first factory produced samples, Nicholas examined the samples while thinking about why the furnace did what it did. Unfortunately, he had too little information to understand the purpose of the furnace. There's no need to think about it if you don't understand, just follow the requirements of the furnace. This is the city of Evelyn. The festival between the Forge and the Carolingian Alchemy Council has long since disappeared with the establishment of the Knights Alliance. There is no way that the Forge can really let the Carolingians be destroyed by the Knights. As the war on the front lines intensified, it became easier to recruit workers in factories. Refugees appear in the city of Evelyn, and they are eager to work in factories. This was the capital of the Carolingians. There were hundreds of thousands of people here. How could it possibly fall? Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 808. After the Wolf Tide ended, Joel, the commander-in-chief of the Elba Constitutional Army, returned to the Garan region. Mr. Advisor, there is a big problem in the Eagle's Crane Peninsula right now. There are too many ships traveling between the southern continent and the Eagle's Mouth Peninsula. The southern continent has been transporting supplies and priests to the Eagle's Mouth Peninsula. The Constitutional Army continuously dispatched airships to patrol the Eagle Beak Peninsula from high altitude. To this end, an alchemist developed a high-power telescope, allowing an airship at an altitude of 10,000 meters to see the general situation on the ground. The only thing that the reconnaissance airship has to worry about is the airship of the trapped church. Fortunately, the performance of the Constitutional Army airship is much better than the imitations. Every time it encounters the airship of the trapped church, the reconnaissance airship can usually escape smoothly. The reconnaissance airship took Rudolph and Joel to patrol over the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The reason why Joel called Rudolph through the star-condensed dragon scale was because of the abnormal power of faith appearing on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The power of faith was so strong that other apostles in Bull City also felt the abnormality. Joel suspected that the gods of the evil cult were testing the feasibility of the arrival of their true bodies to see if the temple on the Eagle Beak Peninsula could withstand their true bodies. The riot of the power of faith came from Malin City. I suspect that the evil god White Demon was conducting experiments just now, Joel explained. The Church of Annihilation has established a temple in Belfour City. There is no problem with the arrival of the evil god Annihilation. The key is the other god lords. If the evil god White Demon can come, then other god lords can also come. The airship flew diagonally above Malin City, suspended in the sky. Provoking the Holy Light cult is not a good choice, because the White Demon priest can also attack airships that are 10,000 meters high. Isn't it because the furnace consultant is here that the reconnaissance airship dares to fly so close? Rudolph slowly turned the scepter. This scepter was a witchcraft weapon made from the previous Pope's scepter, and he could clearly feel the power of faith. It has indeed become richer, and the power of faith in Malin City has undergone a qualitative change. The power of faith contains a trace of divine power, which is only the case after the arrival of the evil god. This is bad news for Elba. They just defeated the Wolf Tide and are now locked in a two-front battle. The north has to support the Carolingians, and the south has to deal with the evil god cult. It is always so difficult for them. The number of believers and priests in Malin City is obviously much greater than before. With the help of the huge number of believers and priests, the evil god successfully brought his true body to the world. Rudolph looked at the somewhat crowded Malone City through the telescope, thoughtfully. He was also struggling in his heart, but soon he made up his mind. It's a good thing. The priests and believers of the southern continent are crowded together on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula. The population density is very high. This is a good thing. Rudolph turned to Joel and said, "Let's go back. Step by step, we prepare for the war according to our plan. Move all the troops and equipment from the Luberon region here to prevent the infiltration of deceitful priests. The evil god may be terrifying in his true form, but Elba, who has gone through many hardships, will only get stronger as he fights." After landing on the ground, Rudolph felt the call of the star-condensed dragon scale again. This time it is not the star-condensed dragon scale from the Carolingian front, but the star-condensed dragon scale from the easternmost part of the northern continent. The United States of Cantal is the easternmost country in the northern continent, but there is also a long and narrow corridor called the Adak Corridor in the northeast of the United States of Cantal. After passing through the Adak Corridor, which is thousands of kilometers long, you will enter an enclave thrown off the northern continent, the oak forest. Most druids live in isolation in remote oak forests. Ahriman used the Starlight Sky Swallow, carrying druid Pilot on his back, and kept flying to the northeast, finally reaching the oak forest. Ahriman's eyes were very thick with dark circles, and he carried a piece of star-condensed dragon scale. In order to reach the druid's oak forest, he flew sleeplessly for a long time. Tianyan is a constellation known for speed, and only he can accomplish this in a short time. After entering the oak forest, many falcons with a wingspan of more than 10 meters took off from the forest. However, after they flew into the sky, they saw nothing. When entering the oak forest, Rudolph had already appeared here through the star-condensed dragon scale. Before the cooperation was negotiated, Rudolph did not want to expose his whereabouts. Several huge falcons didn't notice anything. In the end, they just thought they were dazzled and landed on the ground. In the middle of the oak forest, the sun shines on the waterfall, creating a beautiful rainbow. There is a stone bridge under the rainbow. The stone bridge is covered with vines. There is a female druid sitting in the center of the stone bridge. She has a beautiful wheat complexion, slender calves, but plump and strong thighs. An emerald green leaf skirt hangs around her waist, and her abdominal muscles and mermaid lines are clearly visible on her lower abdomen. There is a light green tube top on the chest. The tube top is very tight, but it cannot restrain the high bulge in the chest. The shoulders and arms have muscles that are just right for a woman, neither weak nor cumbersome. There was tranquility on her face. This was the only level 9 druid, the incarnation of the goddess of nature, the daughter of the oak tree, Neoph. Neoph suddenly raised her head and looked high into the sky. The figure of a wizard appeared in front of her. "Dear level 9 druid, I am Rudolph, the Scorpio wizard. I hope to talk to you." Neoph has lived in the oak forest since she was a child, and is both curious and a little repelled by visitors. "What are you talking about, wizard?" "Talk about the eternal authority that belongs to the druid, Kyuji." When Neoph heard the word silence, her breathing suddenly accelerated. She understood instantly that this was the guidance of the goddess of nature, and she could no longer live a peaceful life. The higher the level of the druid, the more tranquil their temperament is, and they only like to stay in nature. This is even more true for Neof, who has not been excited for a long time. The power of immortality that belongs to the Druid, how did you know about this? Rudolph smiled and said, you can think of me as half omniscient, I have half omniscient power. Neof didn't know what the wizard in front of her was going to do, she was ready to listen and then decide. Even the most tranquil apostles could not refuse the power of immortality, especially the 9th-level apostles. Neof led the way, and the two walked in the oak forest. As the residents of the 9th-level druids, the scenery around Rainbow Creek is very beautiful. The bright flowers, dew on the leaves, fresh air, and the chirping of insects and birds calmed Rudolph's heart. As the two walked and talked, Rudolph told them all his plans. You mean, the next decisive battle in the northern continent will be unprecedentedly intense, and more than one authority of immortality may be born? Rudolph nodded. Yes, respected Madam Archdruid. This war is a continuation of the God War more than 2,000 years ago, and also a continuation of the Constitutional War more than 200 years ago. The answers that were not obtained in those wars will appear in this war. Some people add fuel to the flames, and some people take advantage of the fire. I don't want to deal with it passively anymore. Since there will be an ending, then I hope this ending will not be so bad. They want a big one, I will give them a bigger one. The final battle, a cruel and bloody final battle, will give birth to several eternal powers. I don't want the evil god to obtain the authority of withering and silence, so I invite you, respected Archdruid Neofu. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 809. In order to convince Neof, Rudolph released another piece of news. The omniscient authority told me that the evil god Insect Nest is planning the authority of withering and desolation. This may offend you, but the priests of the Insect Nest and the Druids have some similarities. They can also control the growth of plants, and they can also control insects in nature. The most compatible with the evil god Insect Nest is the authority of withering and desolation, which originally belongs to the authority of Druids. Neof frowned slightly, and this news finally made her feel the pressure. If the evil god Insect Nest obtains the authority of withering and desolation, then the Druids will really be finished, and they will completely become marginal apostles on the continent. They are now living in a distant oak forest, which is their own choice. If the authority of withering and desolation is occupied, the evil god Insect Nest will not allow them to live in such a beautiful primeval forest. Neof did not doubt the truth of this news. According to the Druid's heritage, the evil god Insect Nest was originally a Druid. He was a Druid who focused on controlling insects. Later, he was deceived and bewitched and became the first believer of the evil god Mother Goddess. The first generation of werewolf Corvinus, the ancestor of the blood race Dracula, and the evil Mother Goddess were called the three apostles of sacrifice in the ancient times when the apostles were just born. They all need sacrifices and servants. The servants of the werewolves are wolf servants, the servants of the blood race are blood servants, and the servants of the evil gods are divine servants. The original 10 divine servants shared the evil Mother Goddess, divided the authority of the evil Mother Goddess into 10, and became the later evil gods. The authority of withering is so suitable for the evil god Insect Nest that there will be no conflict between him and the authority. Neof asked, the evil god Insect Nest has been trying to seize authority for thousands of years. Why is it possible to succeed now? Because the power of the alchemist has increased the efficiency of killing. Hearing this answer, Neof didn't react for a while. Rudolph knew that Neof might not know much about the specific situation on the continent, so he explained. Alchemists developed gunpowder and bullets, and the killing efficiency of firearms is much higher than that of cold weapons. Later, they developed high explosives, which further improved the killing efficiency. Now, they have developed alchemical nuclear bombs. Let's put it this way, 3 alchemical nuclear bombs can destroy a city. With the improvement of killing efficiency, the sacrifice of the evil god has become extremely efficient. The omniscient authority told me that the Kundan Church is imitating the alchemical nuclear bomb, and they are trying to replace the 9th level alchemical power with divine power. If the sacrificial nuclear bomb of the evil god cult is successfully developed, then death will become the theme of the northern continent. Not only will the authority of destruction appear, but many authorities with negative effects will also appear in large-scale deaths. Death god, plunder, desolation, destruction, disaster, etc. These powers will appear because of the surge in the number of deaths in the northern continent in a short period of time. This world is filled with the power of apostles. Apostles have it, and ordinary people also have a weak apostle power. When a large number of people die, it means that a large amount of apostle power is released. The power of the apostles will gather and manifest as the essence of the power of the apostles, and one authority after another will appear. Ms. Neef, if you miss this feast, then you will miss the power of desolation forever. I don't hide my purpose. I don't have much friendship with the Druids. I don't care whether the Druids can obtain the power of desolation. I only care about one thing, that is, I can't let the evil god Insect Nest obtain the power of desolation. Faced with the wizard's honesty, Neef was persuaded. She added, Druids have never taken the initiative to plan for the power of immortality. Ptolemy, the Lord of Mars and Lord of War, is an important reason. If the power of desolation appears, won't Ptolemy come to grab it? Rudolph smiled and pointed at himself. Don't worry, before I die, you can fight for the power of desolation without worry. If you ask around, you will know that Ptolemy's first target is definitely me. To be frank, I am more disgusting to Ptolemy than you are. With me here, he won't even pay attention to you. Sorry, the oak forest is thousands of kilometers away from the United States of Cantal, and the news here is somewhat blocked. The news I got about you was that you used the alchemical nuclear bomb to eliminate 6 popes. I wonder what you did later? I didn't do anything. I just killed the previous generation of werewolf Corvinus, and then killed the archwizard of the Pillar of Creation in front of the Ares wizard Melis. Neef shook her head. It was really too dangerous to cooperate with the Scorpio wizard. Look at these deeds. Which one looks like a good person? However, she agreed. In the oak forest, countless falcons flew out. Each falcon has 4 or 5 druids on its back. The level of these druids is above level 5 scourge druids. Pilot and Ahriman will serve as guides for the druids to help them find habitats in the Garan region. There were giant falcons flapping their wings everywhere. Ahriman sighed. In addition to the knights and alchemists, the last chosen apostle, the druid, also walked out of the primeval forest. The druid cast a natural spell for all the falcons. These falcons flew in the sky like ordinary big birds and could not be detected. On the Carolingian plains, the Knight coalition was still advancing. In front of them was a county town. The county town had no walls, but there were concrete buildings inside. The Constitutional Army made this place a graveyard for street fighting and prepared to fight a street fight with the Knight coalition here. Emperor Megwen appeared in the suburbs, looking at the county town in the distance. Knights are good at mobile warfare, and street fighting is very disadvantageous to knights. Starlight condensed beside him, and a wizard walked out of the starlight. Ares wizard Melis, with a piece of ice crystal under his feet, waved his staff at the county city. As a wizard of the Pillar of Creation, Melis mastered all fire-related forbidden spells. A meteorite fell from the sky, with pure blue forbidden spells on it. The meteorite hit several houses and razed more than a dozen houses to the ground. If that was all, he would not be worthy of the title of Ares wizard. The kinetic energy of the meteorite was so strong that the ground around the meteorite was covered with spiderweb-like cracks centered on the meteorite landing point. Blue sparks gushed out from the cracks in the earth. With a simple blow, a quarter of the county city turned into a sea of fire. When the flames disappeared, the Midnight Knights and the Flame Knights rushed into the county city from the left and right. Emperor Meguen did not take action. He looked at the results of the Ares wizard and commented, "Not as good as the alchemical nuclear bomb." Melis did not feel embarrassed. It was indeed not as good as the alchemical nuclear bomb. In terms of attack range and destructive power, the alchemical nuclear bomb is the strongest attack of the 9th level apostle. The knights proved in a short time that the knights were not good at street fighting, but they were not afraid of street fighting, and defeated the will of the defenders. In the county city, houses collapsed in the flying axes. The knights transmitted their power to the nobles, and the nobles used weapons to flatten the fortifications. The front line advanced very quickly. The knight coalition quickly defeated the northern Carolingian region and entered the Avelline region, where the capital Avelline city was located. The constitutional army used space to exchange time and arranged a solid defense line around Avelline city. The decisive battle, Avelline city was the battlefield of the final decisive battle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 810. The knight is aggressive and the alchemist retreats in an orderly manner. The constitutional army gave up the advance, relocated most of the population, and gave the entire northern area to the Knight Alliance, trading space for time to manage the defense line of Avelline city. Most of the terrain of the Carolingian states is plain, with no danger to defend. It is impossible to fight against the knights on the plains. Only strong fortresses and layers of trenches can stop the knights. The torrent of knights rolled forward and finally arrived at the town of Fontaine on the outskirts of Avelline. The Carolingian alchemists were the knights defeated in Fontaine town more than 200 years ago. There are ready-made defensive positions here. The eastern suburbs of Fontaine town is a low slope, which is perfect for setting up artillery positions. This is more than 10 kilometers away from Avelline city and is the last barrier to Avelline city. The knight first saw hundreds of airships suspended in the sky, and then saw the outline of Avelline city. A sharp siren sounded over the capital city of Avellines. After several evacuation drills, citizens have become proficient in finding shelters. A little girl clutching a worn-out doll, her only toy, was attracted by the roar in the air and looked up at the sky. In the sky, airships were gathering towards the north. That is the direction of the kingdom of Lothair, that is the direction of the Moguen Empire. Her father thought she was tired, put his hand under his arm, and ran quickly to the shelter. This is a war with the knights and nobles. When the congressman gave a speech, he said that once the Carolingians lost the war, everyone would become serfs in the noble manners. Serf is a term that has been used for more than 200 years. They thought that this identity had long been swept into the garbage dump of history, but they did not expect that it would reappear again. Most of the citizens living in the city couldn't even tell the difference between oats and wheat, so how could they adapt to the life of serfs? Hundreds of airships shroud the city of Avelline below like a mountain. The suburbs are dotted with black lines, which are the trenches of the constitutional army, and are also dotted with dense black spots, which are the fortresses of the constitutional army. After the two sides reached nuclear deterrence, no one took the lead in using alchemical nuclear bombs. The foreign minister of the constitutional army constantly threatens the Knights Alliance. If Avelline city is captured, all the soldiers of the Knights Alliance will definitely be left here with alchemical nuclear bombs, and they will all be buried with Avelline city. The Knights Alliance doesn't care about these threats. Knights always have a kind of courage that does not care about life and death. Each of them is lucky enough to think that they can survive on the battlefield and then be promoted on the battlefield. If you tell them that the battlefield is dangerous, most knights will only become more excited. Each knight looked at the city in the distance in silence. This was the first capital of the United States they had encountered. In the future, they would also attack the capitals of the United States. Cantel's capital and Elba's capital would all fall under the horses' hooves. The airship put a lot of pressure on the knights. The attacks of low-level knights had no effect on the airship, depicting the alchemical reinforcement circle. I heard that Nicholas, the level 9 alchemist of Cantel, had carved level 9 alchemical reinforcement circles on several airships. Even the level 8 Duke could not break the level 9 alchemy reinforcement circle. Facing the flagship airship, the knights could only stay on the ground and be bombed, waiting for Emperor Mogwen to take action. Mogwen 9 did not take off his helmet for a month, hiding his face under the helmet. He asked, "How many people are there in Evelyn City now?" Hermes replied from the side, "Your Majesty, there are at least 600,000 people in Evelyn City." People from the northern region fled into the city of Evelines, causing the city's population to surge. Although some people left Evelyn City in advance and fled further south, our rangers penetrated behind the enemy lines and slaughtered several groups of fleeing refugees, and the trend of fleeing was stopped. Hearing that there were 600,000 people in Evelyn City, Emperor Mogwen said nothing. Enough, almost enough. He looked up at the sky and waited until dark, until Melis, the Ares wizard, arrived. After night falls, the first stars appear in the blue-black sky. A star beam appeared next to Emperor Mogwen, and the Ares wizard Melis emerged from the star beam. On her side is a kite shield, which is the embodiment of war power. They are about to have a negotiation to break the last grudge and cooperate sincerely. Melis said, "Emperor Mogwen, my teacher, the Lord of Mars, was given the war authority of the giants. Giants, living corpses, and plague vectors are called the three apostles of death. The teacher's recent research has made progress, and he wants to go further. What he needs is the authority of living corpses and plague vectors. As long as you kill all the people in Evelyn City, you can create the authority that belongs to the living corpse, the god of death. In exchange, the teacher helps you obtain the werewolf's power of destruction. After the war, you will cooperate with the teacher to create a plague that sweeps the entire northern continent, and help the teacher gain the power of the plague vector. Werewolves, vampires, and evil gods, these are the three apostles of sacrifice. The teacher will not interfere with these three authorities." Emperor Mogwen nodded. He felt relieved and continued to cooperate with the Pillar of Creation. Ptolemy's research has not just made progress. Ptolemy has been seeking more authority, and he has to get involved in every authority. It has not always been smooth. I don't know what made Ptolemy nervous. He no longer collected other authorities aimlessly, but focused on the authority of the three apostles of death. He seemed a little anxious and wanted to go further. The three chosen apostles of God are knight, alchemist, and druid. The three apostles of destiny are the Yanling, the wizard, and the silver snake. The three apostles of death, giants, plague carriers, and zombies. The three apostles of sacrifice, werewolves, blood clans, and evil gods. Mastering the power of destruction that originally belonged to werewolves will not make Ptolemy much better. For him, only mastering the power of plague carriers and zombies can make Ptolemy above immortality and become an 11th level apostle. Ptolemy has already made his confession, and Mogwen 9 has also let down his guard. The Royal Midnight Knights are in the middle, and the Royal Giant Corps are on both sides of the Midnight Knights, forming the main force of the Knight Coalition. Lothair's Royal Flame Knights are on the left wing, and Lothair's two Duke Knights are on the right wing. All the knights are waiting on their horses, waiting for the order to charge. Emperor Mogwen waved his hand, he clamped his horse's belly, and the horse obediently walked forward slowly. The charge horn echoed on the knights. Everyone's eyes were focused on the direction of Emperor Mogwen in the front. When the knights charged, the soldiers could not see the emperor, but they could see the emperor's flag. 3 guard chains flew out from the emperor's flag, and the chains were connected to the 3 Grand Dukes of the Mogwen Empire. The 3 Grand Dukes used the guard chains to connect their respective dukes, and the dukes connected the marquis, layer by layer, level by level, connecting the Royal Midnight Knights as a whole. Under normal circumstances, even if ordinary knights are attacked, they can use the power of the entire knights to ensure that the knights will not lose members quickly. If Emperor Megwen encounters a difficult enemy, the knights can concentrate all their strength on the Emperor alone. The selection criteria for the Royal Holy Grail Knights of East Elba are level 2 knights, and the selection criteria for the Royal Midnight Knights are more stringent, which are level 3 knights. Although there is only one level difference, tens of thousands of grassroots level 3 knights make the Royal Midnight Knights several orders of magnitude higher than the Royal Holy Grail Knights. Thousands of giants are running, tens of thousands of war horses are galloping, and the earth is shaking. At the rear of the Aveline's defense zone, the artillery position opened fire first. Just like the Constitutional War more than 200 years ago, the knights and alchemists once again fought for the domination of the continent. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 811. The United States of Cantal transported more than half of its stock of level 8 giant air blast bombs to the city of Aveline. This was not a test, but a decisive battle. The first round of artillery bombardment was a cluster bombardment of level 8 giant air blast bombs. On the artillery position, 15 level 8 alchemical cannons roared and spewed bombs. The bombs whistled over trenches and bunkers and bombarded the knights. The killing range of a giant air blast bomb reached 1.6 kilometers. More than a dozen giant air blast bombs were enough to cover most of the knights. The knights of the Knights Alliance kept a certain distance from each other. This was a valuable experience gained from fighting with the alchemists. This made their battle line very wide, but they still did not escape the coverage of the giant air blast bombs. The giant air blast bombs once caused huge casualties to the Knights of East Elba. Carloman XVI had to free up his hands to fight against the giant air blast bombs at the most tense moment of fighting with the furnace, otherwise his knights would quickly collapse. Here is Emperor Megwen. Emperor Megwen wielded the Knight Sword and activated his uniqueness. Great Sword Sweep, this is the first knight martial art that Emperor Megwen learned. Mountain Sweep, this is the 9th level knight uniqueness that Emperor Megwen obtained. This sword once flattened a mountain in the wilderness. Before independence, Carolingian and Elba were constitutional monarchies, and the knight nobles lived in a society dominated by alchemists. Alchemists made many inventions that facilitated life, which led to the knights here being keen on enjoyment, weak and gentle. Unlike these fallen knights, the Megwen Empire preserved the most authentic knight tradition. Duel is the most important tradition of knights. Carolingian knights did not encounter a duel for 3 years, but Megwen nobles were keen on duels. Among the nobles who died abnormally in the Megwen Empire, more than 80% died in duels, and the remaining 20% died of serious injuries after duels. The empire did not prohibit duels, and even encouraged duels. Every duel would attract many nobles to watch and cheer. With 3 attendants, they fought a duel between nobles with glory as the goal and their lives as the price. The knights of the Megwen Empire were the most powerful, because each of them was the winner of duels. The tradition of being keen on duels made the knights of the Megwen Empire higher than those of other places. The official statistics of the empire showed that the probability of knights being promoted in duels was more than 60%. Megwen IX seemed to have returned to his youth. He was the most warlike and dueling madman. When Megwen IX was still the crown prince, he once took 3 attendants to challenge the 9th level vampire Dracula in the wilderness. He forced Dracula to wake up from his slumber and angered Dracula, and Dracula's blood sprayed all over the lake. In the duel with Dracula, Megwen IX was promoted to a level 9 knight, and also beat Dracula so badly that he fell asleep. Dracula was unable to do anything in the chaos of the northern continent and had to sleep to recover from his injuries. This is also one of the reasons why Dracula compromised with the werewolf queen. Facing the level 8 giant air blast bomb that was so fast that it was almost a black line, Emperor Megwen launched a mountain sweeping sweep. A wave of air swept across the space in front of him, and other knights suddenly found that they could see the giant air blast bomb with their naked eyes. It was not that their eyesight had improved, but that the giant air blast bomb was almost solidified in the air. In front of Megwen 9, the most dazzling fireworks bloomed. More than a dozen giant air blast bombs exploded in front of him, and the terrifying explosion range of the giant air blast bomb instantly formed an explosion smoke wall. Amid the roar, more than a dozen explosion mushroom clouds appeared in the air. The mushroom cloud was like a wall, with smoke and dust rolling, turning into a wall of smoke and dust, releasing the shockwave and heat inside. The Constitutional Army knew that Emperor Megwen was very strong, so the airships all rose in altitude and flew above the Knights' Alliance. The speed of the Royal Midnight Knights was slightly reduced by the explosion smoke wall, but they were still moving forward. Emperor Megwen looked up at the sky, and took this opportunity to shoot down the flagship of the Constitutional Army. At this moment, a touch of red appeared in the middle of the smoke wall. Emperor Megwen had to shift his gaze from the sky to the smoke wall. Such a huge red figure could only be one person. The Seraph Angel walked out of the smoke wall, with 6 wings covered with red feathers, blood-red full-body armor, and holding a red giant sword. The furnace came to the battlefield. The smoke dissipated, and Rudolph stood on the head of the Seraph Angel, looking at the enemy opposite. The giant air blast bomb that had repeatedly made military achievements on the Eagle's Beak Peninsula was easily cut open by Emperor Megwen with a sword. Emperor Megwen's human identity makes people ignore his strength. In fact, the difference between him and the evil god is nothing more than the evil god has lived for thousands of years, while Emperor Megwen's lifespan is limited. As a level 9 apostle, Emperor Megwen's strength is stronger than other apostles. If Rudolph did not have half of the omniscience and the ability to be reborn from the ashes, he would not be qualified to face Emperor Megwen head-on. The Seraph Angel is hundreds of meters high, like a giant floating in the air. With the appearance of the Seraph Angel, Emperor Megwen's royal flag slowly slowed down, and the Midnight Knights also slowed down. The Royal Giant Corps and the Lothair Knights on both wings are still accelerating, turning the Knight Coalition from a pointed cone to a pincer shape. This is the pressure that the Seraph Angel puts on the Knight Coalition, and the deterrence of the Seraph Angel's past horrific record. Emperor Megwen swung his sword again, and a sweeping blow that could smash a mountain into dust hit the Seraphim. Together with the Seraphim and the wall of smoke and dust, they instantly disappeared in front of the sweeping blow, and only the surging airflow was left in front of Emperor Megwen. Rudolph knew this result before, and the scroll of omniscience had told him that he was no match for Emperor Megwen. This sword was stronger than before, because the power of war was bestowed on the Royal Midnight Knights, making Emperor Megwen more powerful than the last time they fought. Rudolph, who resurrected from the dust, summoned the Seraphim again. The Seraphim began to accelerate and rushed towards Emperor Megwen. The Royal Midnight Knights, like a dark stone, began to roll forward and also rushed towards the Seraphim. In this blocking battle, Rudolph was responsible for delaying Emperor Megwen, and the Constitutional Army was responsible for reducing the number of knights as soon as possible. On the left wing of the battlefield, the Royal Flame Knights bypassed the wall of smoke and dust created by more than a dozen giant air blast bombs and finally saw the Constitutional Army. Jennifer retracted her gaze and no longer looked at the Seraph Angel in the center of the battlefield. Life is so strange. A few years ago, Jennifer was a knight in Lehmantown and Rudolph was a patrolman in Lehmantown. Now they are in different camps, fighting for their own camps. Even werewolves know that the power of immortality is not only the business of the 9th level Wolf King, but also the business of every werewolf, involving the strength of werewolves. After years of propaganda, the knights all know that if the Knight Emperor Megwen 9 does not have the power of immortality, they will slowly become weak like giants. Each generation of knights has its own chivalry. The chivalry of this generation of knights is to make themselves stronger, to make their descendants stronger, to inherit the glory of the family name, and to show the nobility of the bloodline. Behind Jennifer are the royal knights assigned to her by His Majesty the King. She thought this was a good idea. She was on the flank, so at least she didn't have to face Rudolph head-on. The horses were galloping, and Jennifer was about to encounter the first row of steel bars.